Most men believe being nice is a virtue in dating. They think kindness, availability, and emotional accommodation make them safe, lovable, and worthy of commitment. They assume that if they treat a woman well enough, she will eventually recognize their value and choose them. That belief feels moral, it feels mature, and it is exactly why so many men are quietly rejected. The truth is uncomfortable, but it must be said clearly. Women do not lose respect for men because they are kind. They lose respect for men because they are nice without boundaries. Because niceness, when driven by fear of loss or desire for approval, does not feel like kindness. It feels like submission. And submission kills attraction. Being too nice is not about good manners or empathy. It is about self-abandonment. It is about prioritizing her comfort over your self-respect. It is about agreeing when you disagree, giving when it costs you, and staying silent when you should speak. And women feel this immediately, even if they cannot explain it logically. Respect is not built through accommodation. It is built through posture. When a man constantly adapts himself to avoid conflict, avoid tension, or avoid losing her, he sends one silent message. My needs are secondary. My boundaries are flexible. My value depends on your approval. And the moment that message is felt, respect begins to erode quietly. This is why nice guys are often liked but not desired, trusted but not chosen, appreciated but not pursued. Their presence feels safe, but it does not feel solid, and attraction requires solidity. Women are not attracted to men who make life easy for them. They are attracted to men who are anchored, men who have standards, men who can say no without anger, men who do not trade authenticity for acceptance. The tragedy is that most men become too nice out of good intentions. They want harmony, they want connection, they want to be seen as emotionally intelligent, but emotional intelligence without self-respect becomes emotional surrender, and surrender creates imbalance. A woman may not consciously decide to lose respect for a man who is too nice. It happens gradually. She starts leading the dynamic. She starts testing boundaries. She stops feeling polarity. She feels responsible for the emotional direction of the relationship, and responsibility replaces desire. Attraction does not die in arguments. It dies in imbalance. This video is not about becoming cold, distant, or aggressive. It is not about arrogance or dominance. It is about understanding why respect and attraction are tied to self-leadership, not people-pleasing. It is about learning how to be kind without being weak, present without being dependent, and emotionally available without losing your frame. Because the moment a woman senses that you would rather be accepted than be authentic, respect fades. And once respect fades, attraction follows. Before we start, a quick reminder. The real transformation doesn't happen on YouTube. It happens inside the community. If these videos have opened your eyes, what's inside will rebuild your mindset completely. It's not just a course, it's a brotherhood, a private space where men master attraction, emotional control, and the psychology of power. You don't join for a month, you join for life. Every future course, book, and lesson is yours forever. No subscriptions, no limits. Just one decision that changes your direction. If you're serious about growth, discipline, and purpose, click the link below. Join the community. Enroll once, grow forever. Let's dive in. Section 1. The real difference between kindness and niceness. Most men confuse kindness with niceness, and that confusion is where respect quietly disappears. Kindness comes from strength. Niceness comes from fear. One is a choice made from self-respect. The other is a strategy used to avoid loss, conflict, or rejection. Kindness is grounded. It exists alongside boundaries. A kind man can say no without guilt. He can disagree without apologizing for his existence. He can give without expecting something in return. His behavior is consistent because it is not driven by outcome. It is driven by values. Niceness, on the other hand, is conditional. It is reactive. A nice man adjusts himself to keep the emotional peace, even when that peace costs him his authenticity. He agrees when he disagrees. He tolerates disrespect to avoid tension. He gives more than he should because he is afraid that pulling back will make her leave. Women feel this difference immediately. A woman does not experience niceness as generosity. She experiences it as instability. When a man constantly bends to accommodate her, she senses that his center is not solid. And when a man is not solid in himself, she cannot lean into him emotionally. This is where respect begins to erode. Respect is built when a woman feels that a man stands on something unmovable. Standards, principles, self-worth. When those things are flexible based on her mood or approval, she unconsciously takes the lead. And leadership, when it is not chosen but forced, feels heavy rather than attractive. The nice man thinks he is creating safety. In reality, he is creating responsibility. She becomes the emotional regulator. She feels that his happiness depends on her responses, and that pressure kills desire because desire needs freedom, not obligation. Kindness does the opposite. Kindness does not seek approval. It offers presence without surrender. A kind man is emotionally available, but not emotionally dependent. He listens, but he does not disappear inside her needs. He supports, but he does not abandon himself to be supportive. This distinction matters because attraction does not respond to how well you treat her. It responds to how well you treat yourself in her presence. When a woman sees that you honor your own boundaries calmly, she feels safe and drawn at the same time. Niceness feels fragile. Kindness feels stable. Fragility invites testing. Stability invites trust. This is why women often test nice men unconsciously. They push boundaries, delay responses, withdraw affection, or create tension. Not to be cruel, but to see whether the man has a center. When he collapses under the test, respect fades further. The man who understands this does not become harsh or cold. He becomes clear. He stops overgiving. He stops explaining himself. He allows tension to exist without rushing to fix it. And that calm authority restores balance. Section 2. The behaviors that quietly make you look too nice. Being too nice is rarely about one big mistake. It is a pattern of small behaviors that, over time, communicate emotional insecurity. Most men do not notice these behaviors because they believe they are being respectful, patient, or understanding. Women notice them immediately, not logically, but emotionally. One of the most common behaviors is over-accommodation. You change your schedule repeatedly to fit hers. You cancel plans to be available. You rearrange your priorities to avoid disappointment. On the surface, this looks generous. Emotionally, it signals that your time is flexible because your standards are negotiable. When a man treats his own life as optional, a woman learns to do the same. Another behavior is emotional over-availability. You respond instantly every time. You are always ready to talk. You always make space for her emotions, even when it costs you energy or focus. While availability is not bad, unlimited availability removes value. Scarcity creates appreciation. Presence without limits creates entitlement. Many men also fall into the habit of avoiding disagreement. They fear that expressing a different opinion will create tension or push her away. So they nod, agree, and stay quiet, even when something does not sit right with them. This does not create harmony. It creates invisibility. A man who never pushes back eventually disappears as a presence, even if he is physically there. Another subtle behavior is seeking permission emotionally. Asking things like, "Is that okay?" excessively. Checking whether she is upset instead of observing behavior. Apologizing preemptively for existing. These actions communicate uncertainty. And uncertainty erodes respect because it signals that you do not trust your own judgment. Over-explaining is another silent killer. Nice men feel the need to justify their choices, their boundaries, and their emotions. They explain themselves in detail to avoid being misunderstood. But confidence does not explain itself. The more you justify, the more you imply that your position needs validation. Women are not attracted to men who need to be understood. They are attracted to men who are clear. Finally, there is tolerating subtle disrespect, laughing off dismissive comments, accepting delayed communication without acknowledgement, allowing plans to be constantly rescheduled. Nice men often tolerate these things because they want to appear easygoing. But tolerance without boundaries teaches people how to treat you. None of these behaviors are dramatic. That is why they are dangerous. Respect does not disappear overnight. It fades quietly as these patterns repeat. A woman does not wake up one day and decide she no longer respects a nice man. She simply feels less attraction and cannot fully explain why. This is why correcting niceness is not about becoming harsh. It is about becoming intentional. It is about choosing when to give, when to pause, and when to hold your ground without anger or explanation. Section 3. What happens inside a woman? When respect starts to fade. When respect begins to fade, it does not disappear loudly. It dissolves quietly, almost invisibly. And by the time most men notice the change, the emotional dynamic has already shifted. This is why being too nice feels so confusing. The man believes he is doing everything right, while the woman slowly disengages without fully understanding why. Internally, a woman experiences respect as emotional grounding. When she respects a man, she feels that he has a center. She feels that his reactions are not dictated by her moods. She feels that he stands on principles rather than approval. This creates safety and polarity at the same time. When a man becomes too nice, that grounding weakens. She begins to feel that the emotional balance depends on her. His happiness seems tied to her responses. His energy shifts when her attention shifts. And without realizing it, she starts carrying emotional responsibility that she never asked for. That responsibility feels heavy, not attractive. Attraction requires freedom. Responsibility creates pressure. As respect fades, her behavior changes subtly. She may become less responsive. She may delay communication. She may test boundaries unconsciously to see whether he will finally assert himself. These tests are not malicious. They are instinctive. She is checking whether the man still has a core. When he fails those tests by accommodating even more, explaining even more, or giving even more, the loss of respect accelerates. Because now she knows that tension will always be resolved in her favor. And when tension has no resistance, polarity disappears. Another internal shift happens at this stage. She begins to see him as predictable. Predictability is comfortable, but it is not exciting. It removes curiosity. She no longer wonders how he will respond, because she already knows. He will adapt. He will smooth things over. He will stay. This certainty feels safe, but safety without polarity feels flat. At this point, attraction becomes unstable. She may still like him. She may still appreciate him. She may still care. But desire fades because desire needs contrast. It needs the sense that the man is choosing her, not clinging to her. What makes this especially painful for men is that women rarely articulate this process. They do not say, "I lost respect because you abandoned your boundaries." They say things like, "I don't feel the spark anymore," or "something feels off," or "I see you more as a friend." These statements feel vague because the process itself was gradual and subconscious. Once respect weakens, attraction becomes fragile. It can spike briefly with novelty or fear of loss, but it does not stabilize. The relationship feels unbalanced, and eventually she pulls away, often without a clear reason she can explain. This is why being too nice is dangerous. Not because kindness is wrong, but because kindness without self-respect removes the very structure attraction needs to survive. Section 4. How to stop being too nice without becoming cold or arrogant. Most men hear the phrase, "stop being too nice," and misunderstand it completely. They think it means becoming distant, rude, dominant, or emotionally unavailable. That reaction is just another form of insecurity swinging to the opposite extreme. It does not restore respect. It creates confusion. The goal is not to remove kindness. The goal is to remove neediness disguised as kindness. Stopping nice guy behavior begins internally, not behaviorally. It starts with reclaiming your emotional center. A man who is centered does not rush to fix tension. He does not panic when there is silence. He does not overgive to secure affection. He allows situations to unfold without sacrificing his posture. The first shift is learning to tolerate discomfort. Nice men are uncomfortable with emotional tension, so they try to smooth everything over immediately. They apologize too quickly. They accommodate too fast. They explain too much. A grounded man allows discomfort to exist without acting impulsively. That restraint communicates confidence far more than words ever could. The second shift is becoming clear instead of agreeable. Clarity does not require aggression. It requires honesty without justification. Saying "that doesn't work for me" calmly is more powerful than a long explanation meant to soften the impact. Boundaries spoken without anger feel solid and safe. Another key change is pacing your investment. Nice men invest ahead of alignment. They give emotional energy, time, and attention before it is earned. A self-led man matches investment rather than leading with it. He responds to effort instead of hoping effort will be reciprocated later. This is not manipulation. It is calibration. When your investment is proportional, respect stabilizes naturally. A woman feels that access to you is not automatic. It is earned through consistency and alignment. That sense of earned connection restores polarity. It is also essential to stop performing emotional availability. You do not need to be constantly responsive, reassuring, or expressive to be emotionally mature. Emotional maturity is shown through regulation, not display. When you can listen without fixing, respond without chasing, and care without clinging, your presence feels grounded. Finally, you must release the need to be liked at all times. Nice men fear disapproval, so they trade authenticity for acceptance. But respect cannot grow where authenticity is absent. A man who is willing to be misunderstood in the short term to remain true in the long term becomes emotionally trustworthy. This shift changes everything. The woman no longer feels responsible for your emotional state. She no longer feels pressure to manage you. She feels free. And freedom is what allows attraction to return or deepen. Section 5. What happens when you regain your frame and stop overgiving? When a man regains his frame, the shift is felt before it is understood. He does not announce change. He does not explain boundaries. He simply stops overgiving, stops chasing emotional certainty, and stops adjusting himself to maintain approval. And that quiet change creates a powerful reaction internally for a woman. The first thing she feels is uncertainty. Not fear, but disruption. The emotional dynamic she had grown used to no longer operates the same way. She notices that you are still present, still kind, still engaged, but no longer predictable. Your energy is steady, not reactive. And steadiness with unpredictability creates polarity. At this stage, many women test again. They may pull back slightly. They may delay responses. They may challenge boundaries unconsciously. These tests are not punishment. They are verification. She is checking whether the change is real or temporary. This is where most men relapse. They mistake testing for rejection and rush back into niceness. They explain themselves. They reassure. They increase effort. And the moment they do, respect collapses again because the emotional center was not restored internally. But when a man holds his ground calmly, something important happens. The tests stop escalating. She begins adjusting her behavior instead. She responds more consistently. She invests more thoughtfully. She treats his time and energy with greater care. Respect returns before attraction does. This is an important truth. Many men expect immediate desire once they change behavior. But attraction rebuilds on top of respect, not alongside it. Respect is the foundation. Without it, desire feels unstable and unsafe. As respect returns, her emotional posture shifts. She no longer feels responsible for managing the relationship emotionally. She feels relieved. That relief creates space for attraction to re-emerge naturally, without pressure. Another key change happens internally for her. She begins seeing you as a man who chooses, not a man who waits. And choice is attractive because it signals autonomy. When your presence feels chosen rather than guaranteed, it carries weight. This is why regaining your frame often leads to a subtle role reversal. She leans in more. She becomes more attentive. She seeks connection instead of passively receiving it. Not because you demanded it, but because your restraint restored balance. The man who maintains this frame does not seek confirmation that respect has returned. He does not measure reactions. He does not chase emotional spikes. He continues living aligned with his standards. And alignment is what sustains attraction long-term. Section 6. The final mistake that destroys respect after you finally regain it. The final mistake men make is subtle, emotional, and devastating because it happens at the exact moment they feel things improving. After regaining their frame, after seeing signs of renewed respect, many men unconsciously revert to old patterns out of relief. They believe the danger has passed, and in that belief, they relax the very posture that restored balance. This mistake is rewarding early respect with overinvestment. When a woman begins responding more consistently, showing more interest, or leaning in emotionally, a man who was previously too nice often mistakes this as a green light to give more. He becomes more available, more expressive, more accommodating. He speeds up emotionally to secure the connection. And that is where respect begins to erode again. Respect is not maintained by intensity. It is maintained by consistency. When your behavior changes dramatically the moment she leans in, it signals that your frame was conditional. It suggests that your boundaries were not internal, but situational. And women feel this immediately. The emotional message becomes clear. You were grounded only when you feared losing her. That realization quietly collapses the dynamic. A man who keeps respect understands something crucial. Improvement in her behavior does not require escalation in his. He stays calm. He stays proportional. He stays self-led. He allows attraction to grow at its own pace instead of rushing to consume it. Another version of this mistake is emotional confession. Men suddenly express feelings, appreciation, or vulnerability prematurely because they feel safe again. Vulnerability itself is not weakness, but vulnerability without stability places emotional weight back onto her. And once she feels responsible again, desire pulls away. The strongest position is continuity. You remain the same man whether she leans in or pulls back. Your emotional center does not move. Your standards do not adjust. Your kindness remains present, but it is no longer transactional. This creates trust. Trust does not come from reassurance. It comes from predictability of character. When a woman sees that your self-respect does not fluctuate with her attention, she relaxes emotionally. She no longer feels tested or pressured. And in that emotional safety, attraction can finally settle instead of spiking and crashing. Most men fail here because they confuse attraction with urgency. They feel that if they do not act now, the moment will pass. But attraction does not disappear when handled calmly. It disappears when handled desperately. The man who avoids this final mistake does not chase momentum. He lets momentum come to him. He does not accelerate the bond. He allows alignment to reveal itself naturally. And when alignment is real, it does not need to be rushed. In short, most men believe attraction disappears because they were not good enough, attractive enough, or exciting enough. The truth is far simpler and far more uncomfortable. Attraction disappears when respect erodes, and respect erodes when a man abandons himself to be accepted. Being too nice was never about kindness. It was about fear. Fear of conflict, fear of loss, fear of being misunderstood. And every time you chose comfort over clarity, harmony over honesty, or approval over authenticity, you quietly taught her how much you valued yourself. Women do not lose respect because a man is caring. They lose respect when his care has no boundaries, when his presence feels guaranteed, when his identity bends to avoid tension. That is when polarity collapses and attraction fades, not suddenly, but steadily. The shift that changes everything is internal. The moment you stop using niceness as a strategy and start living from self-leadership, the dynamic recalibrates. You no longer give to be chosen. You choose when to give. You no longer rush to fix emotional discomfort. You allow it to exist. And in that allowance, your presence gains weight. Respect returns when your behavior becomes consistent, regardless of her reactions. When you are calm, whether she leans in or pulls back. When your standards remain intact, whether she approves or not. That stability feels safe, grounded, and attractive at the same time. This is why the strongest men are not loud, aggressive, or emotionally closed. They are clear. They know who they are. They know what they tolerate. And they do not negotiate their self-worth through behavior. Once you embody this, everything changes quietly. Women stop leading you emotionally. They stop testing you endlessly. They relax. And in that relaxation, attraction either deepens naturally or reveals itself as something that was never aligned in the first place. Both outcomes are wins, because the real victory was never getting her approval. It was reclaiming your respect for yourself. When a man respects himself, women feel it without being told. And when they feel it, attraction no longer needs to be chased. It arrives on its own terms. Remember, knowledge means nothing without action. If you're ready to rise above emotion and lead with purpose, join the community today at the link below. Enroll once, grow forever.